Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hi, I'm Laurel. Welcome to episode 51 of Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're joined by Immy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Immy. I'm a third year classics and English student at Jesus.
Very nice, the best college, some would argue. Welcome to the podcast. Today we'll be talking about classics and English, the joint honours degree that Oxford offer, how it works, the student experience of the course, mixed potentially, and some elements of the application process. So I'm going to kick it off just by asking, why did you pick to study both?
Yeah, why did I pick to study both? Basically because I loved them both a lot and wanted to study both of them, but thought that I would get more out of each individual subject having them together. So I mean, it's basically just books, lots and lots of books, and I realised that for me, I realised that half of the books I read in English were majorly informed by all of these ancient old texts, and my modern understanding of all these old texts was hugely influenced by the modern English that I read. So I decided that to marry them together would give me a better appreciation of literature as a whole, rather than just having a more limited scope. That's why I picked both.
Yeah, so in the actual kind of studying, how much crossover have you been able to find between the subjects? Because I think if you kind of outline how your course is kind of structured with the two schools and how they kind of interact with each other.
Okay, yeah, so they're very, very separate departments within the university and within college. So you just basically do an assortment for the first two. It's a 3-year degree. Unless you haven't done language before, then it's a four-year degree with a preliminary year of language. So you don't really do literature, you just do like Latin or Greek. And I'll go on to talk about those a bit later. But the first year you have a set of English papers that you do, which you do alongside the English students. So you and I have had classes together for years. So you do sort of like normal English literature and language introduction papers, and you do the equivalent for your classics. So I did something called Latin core, or you do Greek core, and you do basically these separate papers for the first 1.5, 2 years, sort of. And then for the second half of your degree, you do what are called link papers, which is basically the whole point of you wanting to do joint honours, which is where you do a compulsory epic link paper, where it is basically what it says on the tin, you link the whole of classical epic to modern epic. And then you have a choice of, so you do 2 link papers, and there's a choice of your second, whether you do tragedy, which is obvious, comedy, or reception. And I chose to do reception, which is how 20th century poets have received the poetry or any text from the classical era. So basically you get individual understandings of the individual subjects on their own with students of those singular degrees.
Yeah.
Because there's not many, we call ClEng wins. There's not many ClEng wins around. I think there's 12 of us in my year. So you have...
Total?
Yeah, it's teeny tiny. Teeny tiny. So if you want a lot of attention and a lot of focused work, do ClEng. It's useful. It's really useful. So that at the moment I'm doing I finished my epic link paper, and I'm just starting my reception paper. So that's basically how it works. And I should probably add, alongside that, you have a dissertation that you write, which can be interdisciplinary, as in both, or you can pick a side. So it's very sort of malleable. You can do what you want, really.
That's great. Yeah, no, definitely. I remember in first year, you say you do the papers alongside the English students, but you didn't start with the first year English students, and I was wondering if you could talk about how that kind of went for you in your first few weeks at Oxford.
But I've mentioned the teeny tiny classes for ClEng, because there are only 12 of you. And there's sort of certain areas of English literature are more classically imbued than others. So, for example, the Renaissance is literally called the Renaissance because it's a revivification of really old ideas. And so that is from 1550 to 1660. This is really detailed. I don't know why I'm going into this detail.
No,
and in my first year, that wasn't in. So you do prelims, which are your first year exams, and then you have your final honours. And if you're a classicist, you have mods, then grades. So you have the two different sections. And in the first year, English students weren't sort of at a level where they could or had to appreciate the Renaissance work. So it literally, my first ever class and first ever tute was with second years and third years who were doing their final honours, because I did the Renaissance paper like a year earlier, because that's what's required of ClEng students. It was very it was quite stressful, because I mean, everything's stressful at the beginning of uni because you have no idea what's going on and you don't understand what you're supposed to do. So in many ways, I'm really grateful for my first 2 terms, because I really was thrown in the deep end of, oh, this is what an Oxford student actually looks like.
Yeah.
Which was really cool, because it meant my quality of work took quite a big like jump in the first term, because I was like, oh, this is what's expected, when maybe it kind of wasn't, but I sort of had to operate at that level.
Yeah.
But it was definitely it was quite stressful, because they were all just so clever and amazing and sounded so smart, and I'm a late birthday as well, so I just turned 18 and was like, I actually don't know what's happening at all. But I mean, everyone here, I guess the point of this podcast is just to say that Oxford's a normal place for normal people, and they were just very lovely. None of them were like super crazy geniuses. They just knew how to work and knew how it worked here, and so I'm very grateful, and many good things came out of it.
I don't want to just constantly kind of trumpet the praises of Jesus College, but it's the inter kind of year community is very important as well. So I guess having those contacts immediately, definitely, I think, meant you felt more ingrained in Jesus community straight away.
Like for sure. I mean, one of my like close mates is one of the boys who, like Dan Brooks, you know Dan Brooks. He's now doing a master's in English. And I had classes with him when he was a second year and I was a first year. And so, and also the really useful thing is I still have work that they wrote, that they sort of sent me and shared with me, that now sort of the whole of our English cohort have learned from and have. Because, and this is something I do actually really want to impress, especially for Jesus. I can't speak for every college, but people really they don't covet their work. It's not like a really competitive atmosphere where you're on your own, and it's like, especially with English and like classics in English, like it's all just interesting ideas, and it's kind of a bit more of a passionate degree as opposed to trying to win. And that's really great, because it basically means you just have our year group have a Google Doc where we all put all our stuff on, and it's like quite a nice community kind of feel.
No, that's lovely. Thank you very much. So more about the kind of application process with ClEng, because I actually don't know a lot about this. How do you tailor your personal statement to both? Bearing in mind that you can't necessarily apply for this specific course at every university you might want to apply to. So how did you kind of tackle that?
Oh, I said at the beginning it's books, and like it really is just. So I think I just basically, you have to explain why you're passionate enough to not want to do one of them by themselves, but whilst also communicating that you really love each individual subject though, so you'd be happy to do the individual one if you had to, but you'd really rather have them both. And so what I did is, I mean, you have to do the classic personal statement stuff of like, I was a prefect, or like I did D of E, or I play this instrument and that makes me a really good worker. You have to say all those sorts of things, but especially for Oxford, you have to really explain what intrigues you and fascinates you about the interplay and relationship between the literatures of the two times. So I remember I had a hilarious line in my personal statement. It said something like it was awful. It's like the interaction of classics and English opens up fantastical worlds and worlds gone by, where the past is made present and the impossible is made reality, or something, something like that. Classic, yes. But I mean, that still is something I still feel really
it's true, it's just the phrasing.
But you have to sort of go into why you think they need each other, and that's basically what I did in my personal statement. I talked about why it is that texts from that time and this time need each other, and why they rely on, or especially English to classics, why it relies on all the texts, why it is that texts develop and evolve but they never really change. That's sort of the main question that you investigate in classics and English. Why is it that why is it that everything's different but everyone's still exactly the same in a text, even across languages and across styles and across cultures? It's still the same. So I talked about that, and I think I name dropped a horrendous amount of text. I think it was something I think it was 29 or something text I talked, like I mentioned.
I did not put that many in.
Well, you don't need to. It's unnecessary. And actually, fun fact, on the train on the way to my interviews, I realised I had forgotten about like 10 of them, and was like manically like reading based I was like on JSTOR, like, oh my word, I have to find some info. So don't do that, but find texts that you think rely on each other or have a good interplay with each other, and investigate why that is. And what I would definitely say is if you're doing something like an EPQ, or you've done any sort of extended writing stuff, definitely try and talk about that. Or if you're planning on writing one, write one that investigates text from different times and different cultures, because it gives you a framework with which you can talk about those big questions without sort of sounding a bit lofty and like clueless. So something for me, I compared Ovid's Metamorphoses and Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse and the Waves, and I wrote an EPQ on that, and so I mentioned that, and I'm still very passionate about that topic, so that gave me an outlet that I could investigate all these big questions in. So I would definitely say, if you've written one or are planning on writing one, do write it and mention it in your personal statement. But also, I guess if we're talking about the whole application, you have 2 entrance tests that you do.
You do both?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Carry on, sorry.
I do remember that being quite brutal, because you literally on the same day do the ELAT and the CAT. Yeah. And in terms of practical advice for that, like, don't stress about it, because I asked for my results in my first year. I did not very well on my CAT. I did not do well at all. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, I got it in, so it's fine. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the general listener, if you're applying here, you have to do an admissions test for whatever degree you're applying to. So if you're doing classics in English, you do the classics one and the English literature one. For the classics one, you basically are given 2 unseen pieces of text, completely unseen. One is verse and one is prose. You are not given any like vocab, basically, and you translate it. It is very, and for me, the part I find difficult with translation, so I find that very challenging. But it's basically just a test on natural aptitude. If you've never done a classical language before, you're given like sorry, my roommate is coming. If you haven't done a classical language before, you get given like a fake language, or like a language you don't know and couldn't possibly know, and are expected to work it out. And that's sort of the equivalent. And for English, there's just a bunch of different texts, different extracts of, poetry, prose, plays, transcription of a radio thing, and you pick whatever, and they just give you one word topic. So I think I remember ours, I wrote on food. Yeah, I did the food one. Yeah,
a lot about lobsters.
Yeah, I did the lobster one too. Oh, cute. So yeah, you have to do those at the beginning. And in terms of practical advice for that, I would suggest, if you've done a language already, then go over, just don't stress about it, but just go over grammar, because they won't expect you to know the words, but it's about how you, like the same as interviews, it's not about getting it right, it's about your process of thought, how you think and how you arrive at a conclusion. And it's basically just an outworking of that. And with the English one, I say just have fun, be original, be inventive, but that's basically what I did to prepare. Yeah.
That's lovely, thank you very much. With the interview process, as you mentioned, interviews, how did you find that? Because obviously for English at Jesus, it's usually two interviews, which I'm sure there'll be another podcast on at some point, but so you would have had the 2 at Jesus for English, I'm assuming, and then also...
Yeah, I had four interviews. Yeah, I did. And actually, I'm gonna get it out of the way now. I didn't actually apply to Jesus. I applied to Laurel, but big up, because I got an upgrade in the form of Jesus. Like I love Jesus.
Very nice.
Laurel was great. I just really gasped that I got offered from Jesus.
I'm gasped that you were offered to Jesus as well. So
I mean, aren't we all, the general community? But yeah, in the interviews, it's very common to be requested to interview by another college, basically because they have to share out applicants. Some might not have enough, or they might be really interested in you, might want to switch around. So it's very, very normal. That happens to you. Don't stress. But I applied to Laurel. I had 1 classics and 1 English, and then I got requested by Jesus, so I had the same. And that was I think I actually found it quite enjoyable. I didn't find it particularly stressful, but it was very long because I was here for about 5 days. Just sort of, I did the first 2. I was here from a Monday to a Friday in the December period. Yeah. because they have to figure out if anyone else wants to check you or whatever. Yeah, no, I found them. I actually found the more I had, the easier they got. The first one I was it's quite stressful because you do just sit on a chair in front of these people and have to talk and say things that are insightful, and it's quite sort of, it is stressful. But I think after the first one I realised that it's not about saying something that so they think that you're amazing. It's about sort of just thinking about what it could possibly be, and trying to be interested in it, as opposed to just trying to like find an answer to something. And I remember in one of them, in the classics one actually, it was like an English poem, but it was sort of about Homer. And they were asking me things, and I really felt like they wanted me to say something specific that I wasn't getting. And I was sort of getting a bit het up, like, I don't know what you want me to say. But then once I kind of let that go, and I was like, well, I'm just going to say the things that I want to say, it was a lot easier. And I would also say that I'm very like forward speaking. I very much speak my mind about things. And I remember in one of my classics interview at Jesus, actually, one of my favorite tutors I actually went on to have, her name's Melinda. She was I had 3 people in the interview room, which is a lot, and she asked me something about my grades, or about, do I think I'd be good enough at Latin. And I got my shirt up a little bit because the question kind of bothered me, and I was like, well, actually, and sort of kind of gave as good as I got, sort of. And when I left the room, and I know this because she told me this, I left the room and she requested them to give me an offer because of the way that I'd answered the question, because I wasn't just like sort of crying about it or being embarrassed, but I sort of rose to the challenge of whatever they were asking me. And I think they really like that. They really like you to assert yourself, and if you know something that you think, you say that, and don't worry about sounding stupid, because they don't think you're stupid because they've offered you an interview. They don't think you're stupid at all. So yeah, that's what I would say. I actually quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think as well, I'd say like a key thing, I only had 2 interviews total, but a thing I've like noticed talking to people is key to carrying on, if you have that many, is let each one go as you're leaving it, because I think some people came out and were like, no, and then you have to go to another one. But every one is a chance for you to get chosen and selected to like carry on and do your degree here. So
I mean, I remember coming out and people being like, how did yours go? What did they ask you? This is what they asked me. And it's a bit like, what's written on your CV, your personal statement, and what your grades say, all of those things are not shared, like they're different to literally every other applicant. So the things they're going to ask you are never going to be, they're just not going to be the same. And I think it's very, you just got to let it go. And that's why I'm saying, you just sort of choose to say the things you want to say, find things you're interested in, and just decide that it's going to be a fun time where you just say things that you're interested in. Because realistically, the only reason why they're professors at all is that they found some books that they were really interested in and kind of made a living writing on them. That's the only reason why they're there. Like, and so if you think about it like that, it gets a whole lot less stressful, because it's
they become
just
people.
Yeah, instead of these scary like statues just looking at you, they're just people who like books, or other numbery things if you don't do classics in English.
Those numbery things.
Number things.
So what would you say the best thing about studying classics in English at Oxford is?
I'm
asking you to narrow it down here, sorry.
That's so hard. Oh my gosh. So many things. I have like 3. Okay. I would say, it is amazing how much choice you have over what you do, and how much sort of one-on-one time for you to develop your own ideas and things that you're interested in and what you think, compared to other single degrees. So I know, because of like doing English with you guys and classics with other people, I don't have to do the same number of things that other people have to. I get a lot of choice over what I do, and it's very cool, because it means, I've had papers that I do where it's just me and just this tutor, which is amazing. And I really love having to use other people, but for stuff that's specifically sort of classics in English, to have time one-on-one to talk about things that you really like and you really care about and you have space just to do it just for you, or like with one other person because there's only 12 of you, that's really, really, really amazing. It's a really special thing. Now, and I would also say that I mean, this sounds like I'm just playing Oxford, but it is actually true. Oxford's way of doing this degree is unlike any other university because they allow you to make a choice over what you do. And because here they understand that just because there's the whole of literature is your scope. Just because the scope is so wide, a lot of universities sacrifice depth for breadth. They don't do that. They allow you to go really into great depth about things, which is very special because I guess it's a bit limited, but you have a real deep understanding and knowledge of for example, like theory of translation. I would say that because of what I've been allowed to look at in that topic, I have a really deep understanding of it in a way that if I'd have gone to Edinburgh, which is the other place I really wanted to go, I wouldn't have had that in the same way at all. And and also I'm sure every person who comes on this podcast will probably say this, but tubes sometimes can be a magical thing. They really can. You and I have been tube partners before.
Jane Austen tutorials specifically.
And that was just, it's sometimes, if you come here, it's because you love your degree, normally. And I'm like, with classics and English, to get in, there's got to be quite a lot of passion in why you want to do it, because you're asking for a lot more than just one degree, because it is a degree and a third or a half. It is more. And so there has to be quite a significant amount of passion behind what you're doing. And so when you're in a room with somebody who understands and has the same passion as you do, it can be very, very special, really special. I would say it's probably my favourite.
I think I want to say as well, like, this isn't just you, but it relates. We have a lot of tutorials together. I don't know if you would have gotten that from the rest of the podcast, but the joint honours students can also bring so much into the single honours. It's just new ways of thinking about things. So for example, recently we're doing a Shakespeare paper, and there'll be allusions in certain texts that I will not pick up on, and Immy will obviously pick up on because she's got this whole like backing of the classical behind her, and you can enhance each other's degrees so much. And just like, it's also in first year we appreciated having, because we only had you for one paper, but like it's just having that kind of fresh energy and all of this. It's just like joint honours students are very beloved, I think, in
I would, but also I want to back that up as well with the fact that, so I said we have a lot of choice over what you do, but obviously inherent in that comment is that there are things you don't do, which can be really, really peak when it's stuff that's super interesting. But
is this your worst thing about classics and English?
Yeah, this is probably the worst. It's just that there are some things that, because of there being only 24 hours in a day and me being a human who wants a social life, like I can't. Yeah, weirdly, I want to have like friends, so like I can't do the whole of both subjects. And so something for me that I've never done. I've never done Old English. I mean, you can, and this is back to the pro, like you literally can do whatever you want, but that is not something I chose. So in my epic link paper, there's these Old English things that I like, obviously I have honestly little to no understanding of. I don't know what it's talking about. And I remember I texted you about it, and you pretty much immediately sent me notes and like translations of things and stuff like that. And so what you guys get from us, we equally like get from you, and in the same way with my classics like mates, like my friend Cece, our friend Cece, who does classics. She sent me stuff before when there's things I don't know. It's very useful, and then I'm just very glad I do the degree because I get a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's so cute. I'm trying to think. One question I did have, sorry, as we were talking, it came into my head. So the way it works is you choose Latin or Greek, or can you do both? Like, how does that work?
Okay. You can do both.
Or you can do neither before and then learn them alongside the degree. Is that right?
Yeah, so she's sort of like a classmate, Nancy. Nancy did an economics degree and then did another undergrad and did classics and English, and she started off with no language, and in her preliminary year did Latin
Yeah.
And then when we were together, she also did Greek. And other people I know came, so they literally any what's the word, sort of like mix. You can have none and do both. You can have none and do one. You can come with one and do two. You can come with one and do one.
Yeah.
So I did Latin before, and I only do Latin now. I've like, and this is what I'm saying, even within the ClEng students themselves, there's 12 of us, and every possible different combination, someone does it. And so it's interesting. The papers are designed in a way where you can answer regardless. So like in the Epic Link paper, there's commentaries that you have to write, and I will obviously do the ones with Virgil and with Latin, whereas the Greek kids would do the ones with Homer and with Pope. But then like if you do both, you can, you know, pick and choose. But what I would say is it is a very demanding degree in terms of workload, and it's very rewarding, and I love it very much. But the fact is it's a very heavy degree. So I have immense respect for my classmates who do both languages, because I don't know how you would even process all that stuff. But it's possible, and people do, and they really love it. But you can sort of do any combination, really.
With even in our like English degree, I've been offered before like a supplementary Latin teaching kind of. They fund language courses. There's a lot. I'm sure there'll be.
You know, that it's so unsurprising that they do that though, especially when you get to final year, because you realise everything is classical. And I guess especially because we obviously doing Shakespeare at the moment, and you've done Renaissance and Restoration recently. Everything has a Latin quote, or it's from a Latin text, or it's from this classical guy, like everything. And so I'm really unsurprised that they offer that, and I'm kind of glad they do, because it makes me sad, the thought that all of these clever things, but also somewhat irrelevant sometimes, but all of these things just over people's heads. So I like that they offer that, and that shows as well, if you're not particularly, you know, if you do love it. So I this is kind of deep, but I prefer English to classics. I'm better at it, but like awful, but like I am sort of more inclined to English, but I love them both to do them together, obviously. But if you are someone who, you know, you really love English, but you kind of like classics, you know, it's okay, but you're not sure you really want to do that, you know, you don't have to do classics English to be able to do supplementary Latin, or you don't have to do it to be able to understand it, but it depends where your heart really lies, doesn't it, and how much you care about the interplay between texts. Yeah.
We've come full circle back to why Immy chose classics English in the first place, and why you should consider it. So all we have time for today. We've learned some really interesting things. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you for coming and talking to me. It's so sad because she's in the accommodation block across from me, but we cannot currently sit together.
Yeah, like if I were to shout now, you could probably hear me.
I think I could probably hear you from the window, but so this is Oxford from the inside. Remember to follow us on Instagram, cheeky plug. We have a Facebook page and also LinkedIn for updates and everything. Hope you all stay safe and well until next time. Bye.